Welcome to the Adventures in Learning podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Diane. How many times have you worked with somebody in early childhood and you felt at the end of your rope? You're not sure what to do. You think you're supposed to teach them how to write their name or how to count to 10 or how to cut with scissors, but you don't really know how to go about doing it and what's developmentally appropriate. You're in luck because today's guest has figured some of this out. And she does professional development, but she also has her own women-led business, Golden Nugget and Knots and Knuckles. And I met her at Project ACT when I was keynoting a conference earlier this spring, and I'm so excited to be able to bring her expertise to you today. I have Shala Zaccheus with us today, and she is truly an incredible bright spirit. I think you're going to enjoy today's episode. Wonder, curiosity, connection. Where will your adventures take you? I'm Dr. Diane, and thank you for joining me on today's episode of Adventures in Learning. Welcome, Shala. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I would love to start just by talking a little bit about your adventure in learning. How did you get into education, and how did developmentally appropriate practice become a passion for you?
Okay, so I got into education. It's kind of actually funny because my dad always told me growing up that I was going to be a teacher. And I think simply because he was saying that, I was like, no, I'm not going to be a teacher. I'm going to be a lawyer. So all throughout my undergraduate experience, I was taking psychology courses and preparing myself for the LSATs, blah, blah, blah. But during that time, I was picking up, small jobs, just to keep a little change in my pocket while I was in college. And I always ended up at a school. So I was doing aftercare or supporting, child centers that might need extra help during certain times of the day. And by my senior year, I called my parents up after they paid for my LSAT classes. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think I want to go to law school anymore. But I have the type of parents where I have to come with a plan. So I couldn't just tell them that I wasn't going to law school. When I approached them with that, I had already gotten into American University for their Master's of Arts in Teaching. And I was able to do a concentration in early childhood. And I had also gotten a job at a school. So upon graduation, I would be ready to work. I'd be ready to go back to school. So my parents were kind of like, okay. So when I left Howard, I started teaching at a charter school in DC. And I was put in a pre-K-4 classroom as a co-teacher, assistant teacher. I had a mentor teacher at the time that had been at the school for a few years. And I was really amazed at what little people could do. Like, I was just so shocked because I'm like, I just didn't realize that little people could talk so much and do so many things and, can express themselves. So that really what ignited my passion for early childhood. During that time, we've talked about it before where, I was being told, I was given mandates, end of year expectations for children. And I was just doing what I was supposed to be doing what I was told. But as I went back to school to get my master's and then eventually my EDS in special education, I realized that there were better ways and different ways to work with children. And after teaching for about 5 years in the charter system in Washington, D.C., I decided that I wanted to kind of do something different where I could really hone in on what's developmentally appropriate for young children. So with that being said, I became a developmental therapist and I started pushing into childcare centers and homes and schools, supporting educators and parents and families with supporting their children that might have developmental delays. So in doing that work, I really got to see how different children operate based on, what's going on, if there's like a speech delay or a physical delay, and just different ways to work and support children that might be falling behind, the standard norms. And in doing that work, along with the research that I had done at GW when I was getting my EDS, I really wanted to focus on that fine motor support and how to really support educators, parents, families with working with children and developing the strength in their hands before expecting them to do lots of things, but especially writing. Right? They can't button their pants if they can't hold, a bunch of Cheerios in their hand. They can't put on their socks, and they definitely can't, hold a pencil to write. So I developed a framework called Knots and Knuckles that really focused on that support and working with children through play in strengthening their fine motor development and fine motor muscles before expecting them to be able to trace letters or write their name. So that's where it all began, and that's my little story.
As you're telling your story, I'm realizing there are so many parallels to ours. I was at American for my undergrad, and
Okay.
I was same course. I was a double major in political science and communications and was studying for the LSAT. I was going to be a lawyer too, and honest to Pete, it was my senior year where I had been doing volunteer work and helping, and I was like, I think I need to be a teacher. And both of my parents were like, yeah, you probably do, but you got to go to work first. And so I wound up working for a few years in the nonprofit sector, gaining experience, and then ended up at UVA to do my master's in teaching and then ultimately my doctorate. But I love the fact that there's that parallel and that sense of home. I loved working with Howard and GW when I was in the DC area because we were working
Okay.
on sort of joint community service projects together across the
Okay.
colleges. So I love that there's that parallel.
Yeah, very cool.
So let's dive into the little people because, as you said, it's complicated because there's a big push from above that we want them to be reading and writing, and we're sort of pushing kindergarten down, we're pushing first grade down, we're pushing the academic stuff, and we're forgetting that they need at their core to play. And really that's a primal need, I think, that works its way all the way up through elementary school. But
Sure.
we see it starting to be taken away even at the very young ages. How do you model the need for play and help teachers to see the value in it in reaching these goals?
Literally by modeling, like literally in dress clothes on the floor, showing them exactly what it is that, I want to see or what the research shows is best practice, especially with our really small ones, our infants. I have a few programs that I work with now that have infant classrooms and just even the talking piece, talking and engaging with children. I think, some people think because they're so small and because they don't have words that, you don't have to say as much to them. So what I really like to do with programs that I work with is like hands-on modeling, getting down nitty-gritty on the floor, whether it's a skirt, whether it's dress pants, dress shoes, and showing them whether it's tummy time, getting on my stomach and showing them that you need to be down on level with children if you want them to engage in tummy time. If you want them to sustain in that tummy time, then you need to be really down there engaging them and playing with them. As they get older and they start to be able to do more things, following them around the classroom, asking them what they're doing, engaging in their play, following their lead. If they tell you that the dramatic play is now a zoo, it's now a zoo. And really, following their lead and allowing them to have that autonomy and showing the teachers that it's okay to let them play because they're still learning. I can still ask them what beginning sound of a banana is. I can still have them count how many plates they put out on the table to feed their friends. So we can still incorporate those academic things or skills that maybe your school or the child center or the grant is asking you for, but we can still embed it into play. So I think sometimes educators need to see that, okay, all right, we can do letters, but we can do it over here in the sandbox. We could do it outside at recess. We could do it in dramatic play as well, but let them play and let them engage, let them do it at their own free will also based on what they're interested in. If you do it based on their interests, they're going to be more inclined to, engage with you and to retain it as well. So
I've found as I've been on the road lately that the model that's working the best is doing the professional development with the teachers, showing them what you want, but then going in and pushing into the classrooms and doing exactly what you said. Modeling, this is what it looks like. And you can still get all the academic content in, but make it playful. One of my
yeah,
very favorite things I'm doing with first graders right now is we actually move like different animals. So we're talking about the adaptations that different animals make. We have an animal parade. Then they sort and classify animals based on how they move and different classifications. And then we play, like we talk about, what does an animal need to live? And I'll give them the challenge that, if you're living in Baltimore, penguins from Antarctica are coming to live in Baltimore. And they can't live here. So what do we have to do to help them be welcome and to help them adapt? And then they get a bag of found materials, cotton balls, beads, ribbons, rocks, and penguins. And they have to figure out a habitat. And it's the most glorious thing because it's simple. There's nothing expensive to it. And the
Yeah.
kids get together, they talk to each other, they negotiate, they start playing. And if you let it go enough, suddenly you've got these penguin worlds going on. And you
Yeah.
sit back and you let them do it. And then you give them the chance to explain what they've done to their peers. And you can tell immediately they got the content, but they also had a really good time doing it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I love that kind of interaction. It really pushes, in my opinion, the educational pieces that matter, their critical thinking, their problem solving, that experimentation, those peer conversations, like all of that can happen through just prompting them with something as simple as what would happen if penguins came to live in Baltimore. So definitely love that kind of strategy and working with the children. You really get more from them that way.
And they have fun. And often, one of the things I'm sure you've seen this when you're in the classroom too is at this point in the year, teachers often have that kid or those kids that they're just done with. They're tired. And those are the children who typically do the best with a guest teacher who's on the floor with them and engaging them in play.
Absolutely. It's funny you say that because I was in a classroom recently where I happened to be mentoring a teacher and I just happened to get down on the floor to play with a particular child. He had like a bucket of buttons, different shapes, colors. So I just sat with him and he was by himself. So I sat with him and we sorted from color to shape to size. He sat with me for about 20 minutes. And when I was leaving out, the teacher was like, he's always all over the place. And I wouldn't have guessed that after my interaction with him because I'm like, well, I played with him. I talked with him. We chatted. He even told me what he thought my favorite color was because he says that every time I come to the school that I wear black, which I wear a lot of colors, but he's like, you always wearing black. Black's your favorite color. And I'm like, how would I have known that if I hadn't sat with him, taken that time to engage with him? And I'm like, he'll probably be a lot calmer and not all over the place if you all engaged him a little more. That's it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, as you're working in early childhood, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're noticing and seeing right now?
So one of the biggest things that I have to say that I notice is that the number of children in a particular classroom with special needs seem to be higher. So whereas maybe 10, 15 years ago, you might have one or two children that might have an IFSP or IEP. Now in some classrooms, it could be three or four or more. And with that being said, the same things, though, are still happening where the teachers that are in the classroom don't always have that experience to work with children with special needs. So now there's supposed behavior issues. A lot of the teachers complaining about behavior issues. And what I've noticed in going into the classroom is that it's not even always so much behavior issues. It's either lack of engagement and or environment where the environment is not set up in such a way for the children that are busy to be successful and or there's not enough engagement with those children that are more active or might have those special needs to keep them calm and regulated so that the other children can function properly. So I think that there's definitely a need for more directed supports for teachers to work with children with special needs, so that they can understand what the behaviors do look like. These are not always misbehaviors. Sometimes they're exact characteristics of the need, right? Sometimes children on the spectrum tend to maybe have certain reactions to light or colors or sounds. So what do we do in our environment to make sure that that's minimized? So we're not triggering, I hate to use that word, but not triggering children to, react a certain way. So I think that's one of the biggest needs is supporting teachers in working with children with special needs because the numbers seem to be increasing within the classrooms. What have you noticed?
I was going to say, I noticed similar things. I was at a school last week and I realized that pre-K through second, they had two classrooms and one was general education and the other was their push-in classroom. But the general ed side had more behavior issues, honestly, than the other one did. And it was the level of engagement and it was the level of support. And I think also reaction to play, that
Mhm.
being open and willing to take that chance into play. So that was really interesting. I've also noticed that there seems to be less time built in for things like read alouds and play, that we're so focused on we have to teach to a very rigid scripted curriculum
Mm.
that we're not necessarily seeing the children in front of us.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And trying to make teachers understand that, like, the curriculum is your roadmap and you decide where you go. You don't have to be so stuck to this particular activity because it's supposed to happen at this time. I'm like, if you will just go with the flow just a little bit more, follow the children's lead, you'll see that the classroom day is a lot smoother for the children and for the teachers.
It's more
So,
joyful. Take a detour.
yeah, yeah, right. Like the classrooms that I go in that do best, the teachers are willing to move that way. You know, the child might say something and they'll say, okay, let me go in the closet and see if I have that. And yeah, forget about the science thing that, you know, you had to have done today. You can do it another day. You might even be able to do it later in the day. You might be able to find another time to get it done. So like, yeah, just being flexible, going with the flow and not being so stuck to the regimented curriculum and realizing how that curriculum can be embedded in other ways also.
Yes. It doesn't have to happen language arts here, math
Yes,
here, science here. They actually mesh so beautifully together, especially when you have that thread of play weaving through everything.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Imagine a space where curiosity drives innovation, where empathy fuels collaboration, and where learning feels less like a task and more like an adventure. My message isn't about adding more to your plate, it's about changing how you see the plate entirely. I'm Dr. Diane Jackson Schnorr, and through the power of purposeful play, I equip leaders, educators, and organizations with the tools you need to unlock creative problem solving, deepen human connection, and build resistant ecosystems of empathy and innovation. Attendees will walk away not just inspired, but empowered, with immediately usable strategies to spark curiosity in teams, to lead with empathy, and to infuse learning into their everyday cultures. You'll learn how play isn't child's work, it's the secret weapon of the world's most effective leaders and change makers. This is not a feel-good talk that fades by Monday morning, it's a movement. A shift in how we engage people, solve problems, and lead meaningful change. My talks and workshops are shaped by decades of experience in education and a transformative message that connects across sectors. Whether your audience is corporate, educational, or nonprofit, they'll leave ready to rethink what's possible, both personally and professionally. Because when we learn and lead through play, we don't just change organizations, we change the world. Check it out at drdianeadventures.com. So tell us about what you've come up with to work with kids in terms of sort of the fine motor skills and developmentally appropriate practice. Because I know that's a big sticking point, particularly in early childhood.
Yeah, it's a big sticking point, and I often get a lot of pushback because the teachers are being told that this is an end of year expectation, and I'm telling them to take their time and make sure, right, if it's an end of year expectation that the children need to be able to write their hand, shouldn't part of the expectation be that they should be able to hold the pencil the correct way? And for me, I'm not impressed in watching a child write their name if they're fisting their pencil. That's not beneficial to the child in the long run that they're able to write their name that way if they're not holding the pencil the right way. So a lot of what I focus on are the different, honestly, it's the whole body and how from the body down to the shoulders, down to the back, to the arms, to the hands, and then the digits, how to give children different opportunities to play throughout the day to build those different parts of the body. So, right, like if we're starting off with the body as a whole, do the children get opportunities to run? Do they get opportunities to climb? Do they get opportunities to jump up and down, to throw, to toss, to kick, right? If we're starting there, those big movements that they're able to do is what helps them be able to do those smaller movements in the long run. So giving them opportunities for gross motor activities, giving them opportunities to use Play-Doh, to do finger plays, to do even floor puzzles, right? Floor puzzles help support the wrist as they lean on one hand to, balance themselves and look for the puzzles, then they have to shift to the other hand. that strengthens the wrist muscles. Allowing them, when I'm talking to parents, let your children help you at home. If you're a baker and you like to cook, let your baby stir the mix. Let your baby wash their hands, of course, but let them knead the dough. Let them get into some of those activities that you do at home. Let them help you wipe down the table. You might not let them do it with chemicals, but you might give them a paper towel with water and let them follow through after you. Ask them to push in the chairs. Let them be involved in the things that happen throughout the day, whether it's at school, whether it's at home, whether it's at the grocery store. Let them try to pick up the bag of rice. Yes, it might be too heavy, but let them try. Just like us, if we go to the gym, we might not be able to pick up 50 pounds today, but maybe at the end of the year, we'll be able to pick up 50 pounds. So really encouraging educators and parents to let children be involved in the day-to-day tasks. In school, you don't have to put out the breakfast, not all of it. The children can help you put out breakfast. The children can scoop their own peaches. They can pour their own milk with supports, right? There might be some mess involved in that, but we can't be afraid of mess. We clean it up, we move on. They can help you clean up
Clean it
the
up.
mess.
Yep.
Exactly. So on top of just the play experiences, but what parts of the day and routine can we allow the children to also help so that they can be strengthening those muscles as well? Telling parents sometimes you have to plan ahead and give yourself an extra 5 minutes so that the baby can put on their socks themselves. Because they might be able to do it, but it might take them a whole minute to get the sock on. And I know you're trying to get to church or trying to get to, your sister's house, but allocating that little bit of time in the long run will benefit everybody. Because in a few months from now, you don't have to put on the socks at all. And now they can do it in a couple seconds instead of a whole minute. So really, and it's not always easy. And I know that parents have a lot on their plate and teachers have a lot on their plate. But if we're strategic about allowing for that time, right, while you're fixing the bananas or fixing their breakfast, then let them put their socks on then. And, a lot of this is gradual. When they're smaller, there's more hand over hand. But even with the hand over hand, it's like, I'm putting on your sock, right? Talk it through so that at some point they say, I want to put on my sock. Really encouraging those hands-on experiences and incorporating children throughout the day, not just play, to see those other opportunities for those fine motor experiences.
I love the notion of practice, and I hear a little bit of Montessori in there as well. The idea of, being truly embedded in day-to-day life, whether it's at home or at school. I mean, we know as grown-ups, we only get better at something if we practice it. And, the first time you try something, as you said, it's not going to go well. I've been in physical therapy for the last couple of months because I fell and broke my arm skiing. I'm okay now, but, I've had to relearn things. And part of that is, oh, yeah, that's what that arm muscle is for. And you don't get to reaching your arm over your head immediately. There are all these little steps that happen before that. And I think that as grownups, we forget that and we get impatient. And it may be the reminder to ourselves, take a mindful breath and remember what your end goal is.
Absolutely. You mentioned Montessori, and I was in a Montessori school recently, back in March. And not only was it fine motor, not only was it like independence, it just had all the things when I was watching this particular classroom. And the children were in, I guess, their work time, not centers, their work time, and everybody was doing their own little thing. And one of the stations that was set up was a snack center. But the snack center had an apple corer, a child appropriate knife, peanut butter, plates. It was literally like the table was like a mini kitchen setup. So when the children chose to have snack, they would go over, they would grab an apple, grab a plate, grab either the corer or the knife, cut their apple, spread their peanut butter, clean it up, wash their plate. The last children that were done put the peanut butter back in the fridge. I was like, they're literally at home at school. I'm like, this is the bomb. Like, this is so good. Like, and I can tell, it's March. So clearly that wasn't happening in August or September. So it's also evident of the routines that the teachers have in place, that they're doing consistently, that the children know exactly what to do, how to do it, not creating a whole bunch of mess. They were so independent. They were like little people at brunch. And like these two little girls were like talking and eating and snacking and doing it for themselves. It was so cute and fine motor. So I'm like, yeah, the Montessori, all different models of early childhood have their pros and cons, but Montessori really has it going on in many ways.
Yeah, no, and that part is pretty spectacular, the idea of building that independence. So when you go into a classroom, I know you get down and you model. What are some of the things that you're looking for as you're thinking about how to help teachers, how to help students?
I use a lot of language. So while, we've been talking a lot about fine motor, I really promote talking to children, probably because I was a talkative child. Social butterfly was always on my report card to a flaw, but really talking to the children. So when I get down from 0 to kindergarten, because that's generally the age range of teachers that I'm working with, 0 to kindergarten, really modeling the conversations, the labeling, the questioning, the prompting, the repeating, the mimicking, the, excitement when they do say something, providing them, the words or the information when they don't have the words, when I ask them a really big question that I know they probably can't even answer, but giving them that wait time to think, even if they can't answer it. Them thinking is a process. And then us giving them the information. So I do a lot of talking, a lot of asking children questions and then following up with follow-up questions and then asking them to prove it to me or to show me how or, tell me or take me where they did it to really emphasize what it is that they're saying, letting children understand that they are being heard, that somebody is listening to them. And part of that is patience because sometimes it takes them more time just to get their words out or answer those questions. So I'm really taking the time to model, like giving them wait time, asking them questions, labeling things, doing that narration piece. That's a big piece of what I do when I'm in the classroom. I tell my teachers, you're essentially a newscaster or a sportscaster for the entire day. I'm like, be prepared to refill your Stanley Cup because if you're doing it right, you're talking all day. So I think that language piece is really key in being able to support children in all the other areas, really.
As you said that, I was like, yes, the whole newscaster, sportscaster, the play by play. These are the things that drive my husband nuts because even though I'm no longer in an early childhood classroom, I still do it.
Yes. Yes, yes. My husband too. He's a middle school teacher, so he might have a little more he has a little bit more now of an understanding and patience for my craziness. But I find that I even do these things like when I'm training. So like if I'm training virtually, I'll find myself narrating like, okay guys, I'm about to share my screen. I'm gonna take my PowerPoint off. I'm gonna pull this up for you. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing it again. But it's just innate in me
It
now.
really is.
Yeah.
Well, and middle schoolers truly are preschoolers just 10 years older with a different way of expressing those big feelings.
For sure. Because it's funny when I go to like drop off lunch or pop up in there, they don't know me very well, but they're just excited to see me because I'm their teacher's, wife. And they're just as excited as 3-year-olds. They're just as sweet as 3-year-olds. Some of them come up to give me hugs just like the babies do. And that's why you mentioned earlier, like that play that really should be expanding throughout the grade levels. And, it's sad for me to realize that some middle schools don't get recess. Now, my husband's kids do, but he worked at another school where they didn't. And I'm like, I remember being 12 and 13. I'm from New Jersey originally, and I grew up in like a small Hackensack, a small town in Bergen County. And I had recess through middle school. And we jumped rope. The boys would play football or run around and play wall ball and run around or just get fresh air. When we got too cute and when we were like maybe 13 and didn't want to play anymore, we'd sit around and talk outside. And I'm like, I
Right.
think that time is still very important for all children, not just our babies that are, early childhood, but yeah, those middle schoolers as well. Even high schoolers, they might not play, but let them go outside, let them eat their lunch outside.
Exactly.
Um,
We need that connection to the outside, to each other to play. I mean, grown-ups need play, and that's been a huge thing is reminding grown-ups that even when the world feels dark and horrific, you still need to play and find joy, maybe more than ever.
Absolutely. Even right, even more, even more. I think my background is kind of telling, but with everything going on in the world, everything going on in education, with us being worried from day to day about all kinds of things, sometimes I just want to find my peace, and traveling is my peace, and that's why the beach, it just puts me in a different place for a second. I needlepoint. I call myself the youngest grandma you'll know. I needlepoint And that's my play, because after work, you need something else. Right? You need something else to take your mind away from those things. And I think for me, because I do get to play all day being around early childhood educators and children, I'm big on having a good time, whatever that looks like for you. If that's going to a restaurant, if that's going to a movie, a museum, the park, like, have a good time.
I've been delighted to see my oldest daughter. She and her girlfriends are now playing Princess in Perils, which is like a form of Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh,
And
cool.
they're like in their upper 20s and early 30s, and I
Good for
am there
them.
for it. I'm like,
Yes.
they went go-karting the other day, and I thought, yes, you have figured this out, that there's time outside of work, and you've got to find those connections and build that community.
Yeah,
We need each other, and we have a chance to start that with our little people. Every day is a
exactly.
fresh moment to reignite community and to give them the skills they need to do better than we did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So if people want to hire you, if they want to bring you into their classrooms, how do they go about doing that?
Well, if they want to find me, they can find me on social media at The Nugget Professor on Instagram, or The Golden Nugget LLC. If you look up The Golden Nugget LLC, you'll pretty much find me. My email is thegn2024@gmail, so they can reach out to me that way. They can also always reach out to me. I know you have a big network. If they reach out to you to find me, feel free to share my
I
information.
will.
But yeah, they can find me on all platforms, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And I'm accessible by email. And I'm in the Baltimore City area. So anybody in the Baltimore City area, let's link up.
Absolutely. And I can tell you, you're going to get joy, and you're going to find that your day is much more peaceful and lovely, and your kids will benefit.
Absolutely.
My last question for today: what brings you hope?
What brings me hope are the babies. The babies bring me hope. When I walk into a classroom and a child gives me a hug, or they say sorry to their friend, or they give their friend a hug because they realize that they're sad, that's what literally still gives me hope, that our babies will be adults one day, and hopefully what we see of them now, they'll be able to still translate as they get older. We're just going to hope that the world doesn't, crush their dreams, and that people like us continue to still play and support them and encourage them, because as corny as it sounds, they are our future, but they really are.
They are, and we have a huge responsibility to not crush them, but rather lift them up and let them
Absolutely.
explore all of their possibilities.
Absolutely.
Well, Shala, thank you so much for joining us today. I have loved having you on the Adventures in Learning podcast, and I hope that our paths cross where we can offer professional development together. I think it would be really fun to coach
I
with
think
you.
we could do something fun together too. I agree. We should plan for it.
All right. Well, that'll be another conversation, but we absolutely should.
Um,
You've been listening to the Adventures in Learning podcast with your host, Dr. Diane. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe, download, and let us know what you think, and please tell a friend. If you want the full show notes and the pictures, please go to drdianeadventures.com. We look forward to you joining us on our next adventure.